when I was shooting emails back and forth to you, you said busy intake day. Talk to me about intake day before we get to anything else. Just being able to make sure everybody's in the building and the logistics of understanding how we're going to start this season.
Yeah, intake day, it's 9 a.m. We were rolling, we got the freshmen moving into residence. Bolo, probably 18 of our second year players who are waiting for their September 1 lease to kick in. And so they need a head on a bed, and a pillow. And you got these kids transitioning from high school to university football, and mom and dad are there and mom's wiping away the tears, and you're dealing with that. And then, you know, and headshots, and just it's kind of like herding cats. It's but all went smooth, and then we have have your initial team meeting, go over some house rules, and then a couple guest speakers to get the boys going, and talk about the mission, the mantra for the season, and just obviously and then we hit some testing. um and that gets excited. You get the whole team in the varsity weight room, and everyone's doing their 225 reps, and guys are getting fired up, and it's a culmination of 8 months of hard work, and yeah, it's just kind of and it's day zero, really. We call this day zero. Let's cross the T's and dot the I's, and then we're on the field 7:30 a.m. tomorrow morning for a power practice, 7:30 a.m. till 11:05 a.m. So just going 3.5 hours straight, and that's when it's fun, right? They haven't been in helmet shoulder pads since spring camp, and they have all been working really hard, and we so it's an exciting time, but intake day is definitely hectic. So hectic that I had a full staff meeting earlier this week, but now I got to have another full staff meeting at 8 p.m. tonight because there's just no time, because everyone's everywhere, kind of helping out, making sure things flow. So yeah, it's a frantic day, and I don't think it's any different at any other OUA school or U Sports school, and because we don't have like a million people here to kind of usher everybody. So you know I'm rushing over to the wholesale club and buying plates and knives and Gatorade bottles, and not that I'm even in the realm or spectrum of a Nick Saban, but I always joke around. Do you think Nick Saban's doing something like this?
Yeah, it's a different world. I think everybody understands how challenging some of the U sports, restrictions can be at various points. But before we get into your team this year specifically, I just want to ask you, because it's so interesting you talking about like the excitement of getting into practices and having the power practices and being around the guys and helmets and shoulder pads and all the rest. It's you have had some upsides to support in recent years with the Waterloo program. People have come in and helped you, whether it's with the field house or otherwise. And I want to know, like, through your journey, whether it's like being an X to Western to Waterloo, where you are, what has been the thing that you have seen across the U sports landscape that you think you feel like there is real momentum at the start of seasons that might be different? Like, what gives you that positive energy going into another season? It obviously difficult couple of years because the OUA is highly competitive, but there's certain things that I have noticed that I feel like we are growing and getting better, and I'm wondering what you see.
I totally agree. You just look at the landscape of the OUA, and it's so competitive. Each and every week is more and more competitive games as compared to 10 years ago, and I think there's been an investment from the schools for the most part. We talked earlier about the lack of a TV contract. I think, man, obviously we're doing our best with the OUA TV streaming, and obviously Quebec does a good job with TV on, and but man, it would be awesome to get on TSN or even just a game of the week, and just to raise the profile of U Sports football. I mean, I talk to people all the time about the fact that when you look at U Sports football, um, we have people being drafted obviously every year to the CFL, but it's not every year, but we do have guys getting drafted to the NFL.
Yeah.
There's no real other sport in U Sports that has that happening. Hockey in U Sports is outstanding, but it's all former CHL players, and they were playing amateur hockey at the CHL level, didn't get drafted to the NHL. So it's not that they're not good, but it's just kind of like when you actually look at it with that lens and go, man, this is the highest level of amateur sport, and these guys are good, and they're getting better and better. They're trained, obviously not dating you, Marshall. You're still young and compared to me, but just the game has evolved, the training, everything to make these guys bigger, faster, and stronger. And I just think the product on the field is just getting better and better. With our product, and so it needs to get spotlighted somehow, some way. Obviously, we're doing our damnedest to get it on TV, but we do a good job with trying to get it on the streaming and everything. But yeah, it's an exciting thing with football. Football kind of, I had my men's volleyball coach in here, Shane, and he's just like, yeah, I'm coming out to practice this week. They got guys starting to trickle in, and they're getting some workouts in, and he just said it. I love when football training camp starts because it means like it's school starting. You know,
Right.
the fall football kicks things off and gets the momentum of the athletic department going. And that's kind of where it's at. And the funny thing is for some of the coaches that coach here at Waterloo, they came from schools that didn't have football programs. So they talk about how having a football program makes things totally different within the department, from an exciting standpoint. So, yeah, it's, I guess that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's just exciting, and everyone gets to hit the reset button. I said it's like Christmas morning today. And the best part of day zero of training camp is that right now everybody's undefeated,
Yeah.
right? So there's an optimism through the roof. You believe you put the necessary work in the off season, in the weight room, in the film sessions, in developing the playbook to try and appease the talent that we have to get the most out of it. Yeah, so it's exciting time. I think it's you were part of it a long time ago.
Yeah.
It's the best time of the year, right? And so there's always great energy with it.
Definitely. And I think the thing that I appreciate about the volleyball coach now on that is that I like hearing you talk about that gives me the sense of what the community used to be when I was playing Epic Master, which was it felt like if we were all coming back at the same time, the energy on the entire campus started to rise up. And it honestly, it starts to lead throughout training camp to everybody on campus being hyper aware of week one, kickoff week one, right? Because that's the moment that it becomes real, where everybody's actually on the field and you're in your game jerseys and all the rest. For you guys, you have got Ottawa at home coming up in week number one. This is at the end of August. How much does it change your approach depending on opponent going into week one, or is training camp, and we will focus on week one when we get into actually game week prep and when we get closer to actually dealing with this?
Yeah, we're kind of taking that angle. This week, we have to submit the 110-man roster, come Monday, August 24th, I believe. But we're going to be doing a crossover practice on Friday, August 21st at Western. We're going to hop on a couple coach buses and go down there. And obviously, I think they're going to be a very, very good team under the new head coach and Mike Faulds. And we're not preparing for Western this week. That 7 practices that we're getting in before we go down and get to compete against an off-color jersey. The focus is on us. And I talked to our guys today about we're going to weed out we got 124 guys in camp, and we got to whittle it down to 110. We're going to weed out the guys that didn't train properly. Like, I believe training camp is not for getting in shape. I believe it's for polishing and coming together as a team and trying to pull the rope in the same direction. And so we're focusing on us. Obviously, day one install, we have 4 days of install, and then we're going to kind of hit the repeat and kind of just review and kind of these are obviously there is some day install that's kind of going, hey, would we have put this in if we had a different opponent? Maybe, maybe not. So there is a little bit of that pre-planning, but we're going to go compete against Western, give them a day and a half off, get their legs back, and then we're going to go full mode into Ottawa prep. And the nice thing is you get four or 5 days of prepping for Ottawa. But the other piece with the first game of the season and there's no preseason game or tape that we get from on. So we're going off their playoff game. We're going off our game against them last year, which was also the season opener. So it's kind of back-to-back years we've opened with Ottawa here at Warrior Field. So you look at, is there a change in coaching staff? All that kind of stuff. But you kind of, I always believe week one you gotta prepare us. It's about us becoming the best version of ourselves. We obviously know, hey, we predict this is some of the stuff that they're going to show us on defense. This is what they do on offense with Marcel's offense. So certainly, in that week leading up, we're going to have, the scout cards and everything of that sort, prepping our tails off for Ottawa. But ultimately, it's about us being able to execute what we do in our identity at the highest level week one. And then as things progress and you start to get game films, now you can start to prepare a little bit more, and your game plans might not be as generic. The week one game plan is going to be more generic than the week four game plan, because now we've got three games of film to be able to create some analytics and break things down. Yeah, so it is a little bit different week one, that's for sure. But I mean, 1-0 is the mandate, right?
Right.
Because that sets the tone for the season, and so that's ultimately the goal.
Yeah, I love it when you talk about the combine or the testing stuff there, because it kind of reminds me of when guys go into the combines. Like, you can't put up 30 reps of 225 if you started working out 3 months ago. It's a proof of concept for who you have been and the way you have carried yourself for an extended period of time, right? That's all that those kind of combine testing or those testing metrics in general are. But I love that the mandate is 1-0 in order to try and set your tone for the season, because that's a tremendous goal to be able to have. But I also am thinking about how Michael OUA from the Montreal Alouettes said to me a couple of months ago. He's like, football is a people game. So if you know the people, then he's like, you kind of understand what they're going to throw at you, and then it's just trying to understand the schemes that the people are bringing to the game. And you do understand, obviously, so many people around the league at large. You don't have, the game against Western in the regular season here, because looking through your schedule, it's Ottawa, Carleton, Queens, Windsor, Guelph, Laurier, Mac, and then York. So I feel like I can ask you about the person, Michael Fultz, the guy that you've been battling against for the last couple of years. What do you expect Western Mustangs football to look like, as you will be watching them from afar via the people that you're playing against in various matchups and all the rest? Because he will bring his identity to that team, and you've seen what he brought to Laurier. But what do you think that will mean when it's, he keeps the same slight of purple, but he might drop to yellow a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, he's going home, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. We're not playing them in the regular season, and it's great. It's great that we get to go down there for kind of that preseason crossover practice, kind of similar to the way the NFL does it with one-on-ones and Skelly and team run periods, and then 12v12 team periods, and obviously there. I think there's a lot of and G Marsh is my guy. Like, that's our mentor. Like, I'm under his tree, and he retires, and Mike becomes the guy at Western, and there's momentum with that. There's excitement for them. Mike's full of energy, right? And he's a motivational guy. He's a winner. And Western is a winning program, and so they're going to be tough to deal with moving forward with Mike at the helm. There's no doubt about it. But I think there might be, Gleese is still there as the DC, and Mike's going to have a little bit of wrinkle. The offense is going to be the offense, but I think you're going to see, I wouldn't be surprised if you see some 5R from Western. Okay?
Breaking news.
That was never existing with G-Marsh there, I'll tell you that. So you might see some 5R. That's all I'm going to say. That'll be Mike's stamp and wrinkle. When I'm curious if we'll see some 5R from them next week. Who knows? But I think that Mike's going to do a great job, and I think they're going to be and they're motivated, right? I think he's going to play on the fact that the team he coached put a 60 burger on him right last year, and they lost got upset by Guelph in the playoffs. So they got good kids there that are competitive and driven to be successful, and so I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder. And so you always got to beat Western if you want to win the Yates Cup. I think that as well, being a MAC guy, and so not that we're ever trying to duck any opponents, but beating Western twice in a year is a difficult task. So, we'll go down there and do our practice scrimmage with them. And then, our intentions are to be in the playoffs. And then if we have to cross paths in the playoffs, we can take our swing then and beating them once. If it's in the playoffs, that's a good thing. You know what I mean? So that's
I
kind of,
agree.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a good spot to be in. I feel like I was cheating death a couple of times where I dodged him in a Yates Cup, maybe in like 2013 when Guelph was able to pick him off. So, but finding a way is, as you say, even if it comes down to one game, that's all that really matters at this point. Talk to me about your team going into this season, Bert. What do you feel like strengths, weaknesses, standout players? What do you want to highlight for people that are listening?
Like obviously you look back at the film and we were 2-6 last year. A lot of tight games. There was two games, that got a little rough, but beyond that, super competitive games. Some of the games we lost, the first game against Ottawa, I believe, was 16-12 for Ottawa near the end of the third quarter, and then they had a great fourth quarter and ended up beating us 25-12, right? We're right there with it. Last year we arguably had the youngest team in the OUA, and I told people, we don't make that as an excuse. We just call it's an evolution. And the thing at Waterloo is we retain all those guys. Our kids are bright kids, and we're not worried about them not being academically eligible. And we've had two outstanding recruiting classes. Last year's class that's going now into their second year, and this year, obviously with the addition of Kevin McNeil, his recruiting prowess, um, you know, stacking those two great classes has been really positive. And we have a nucleus of fourth, fifth, and I'll say sixth year students, but
Right.
it there's a lot of optimism here. And here's the Coles Notes version of it. We got guys like Nick Gennaro, who was in the draft last year, didn't get drafted. Evan Basiliga didn't get drafted. Four or five other guys that all walked the stage in June. They graduated. And in my time here, including with, the Ford twins, we never had guys who had eligibility left but graduate ever come back. We have six guys that are coming back for the fall and have graduated, and they're coming back to upgrade. um, and they're bright students, they've graduated, but they don't want to have any regrets leaving a year of eligibility on the table. And I think that's a telltale of they believe that we're going to win. They believe that we're going to be in the playoffs. They believe that this coming back to Waterloo after they've graduated to do some post grad studies, it's going to be the best year of their career. And that, player led teams are successful teams, I think,
Yep.
and having those guys come back in the leadership, and that's what their legacy is. They want to go out on a high note. That tells me a lot. It tells me a lot. We've got some really good guys that were, in the East West Bowl they're going into their draft year. They'll be, including Michael Omosini, who, I arguably the best linebacker in the OUA. And then we got the remarkable story of Nick Orr. Nick Orr's cleared to play, and he's coming back from a broken neck, and he hasn't looked better. Like this guy is motivated and driven, and he spent part of his rehab process. He spent so much time in the film, right? And you can see it on the field, and we have an outstanding young quarterback going into his second year in Emmett Ward that we believe is the future here. And he played a lot last year as a true freshman, 17 years old, out of North Vancouver. But going into it, I believe Nick's going to be QB1, the day one starter. He's just such an outstanding leader, and as having a good quarterback room is very important to the success of your football team. And I think we have a very good quarterback room with that fifth year senior Nick Orr, motivated, coming back from a broken neck. And having that young talent in Emmett Ward, we're kind of secure in that position. Our old line now with Nick Gennaro and Thomas Levings, we have two fifth-year offensive tackles. We have two second-year guards that today did 24 reps to 225 and 19 reps to 225, and and they're 300 pounds, and they're bulldozing shit kickers. And so we're going to have an opportunity, if we can stay healthy on the O line, to be able to, be that balanced offense. We do like to spread it out, but we got a really talented running back in Roy Vanderveen who will be going to the East West Bowl next year. I think this is going to be a big year for Roy. This will be his coming out party. And, so offensively. And then our receiving core is kind of a mixed bag of kind of veteran guys that are here for that, have great leadership. Haven't been able to make the plays that we want, that we've wanted to, just with the growth and development of a young team. So there's a nice mix there of young talent that has a lot of speed with some veteran savvy. And they're all receivers because I coach them. I take our receivers and I do blocking drills with them every day because I talk about being a complete receiver. Whether you got to redirect on a pass catch, or you're the difference between a running back gaining 6 yards and getting a 60-yard touchdown, and be a complete receiver. And so, offensively, I'm very excited for us to evolve. Last year we moved the ball well enough. We probably finished 5th in the OUA for total yardage, but in the red zone, we were 11th. We didn't score touchdowns. We've got a great kicker in Evan Astolfo who broke the OUA record last year with a 57-yard kick as a freshman. He's in practice right now kicking 60-yard. Like, we're probably going to, we're going to go for him breaking the OUA record again this year. And it's nice. And, I keep saying, well, I got a really good kicker right now, so I don't want to move the goalpost to the back of the end zone. Because if we get to the 50-yard line,
I don't either.
yeah, if we get to the 50-yard line of our opponent, we're going to take a swing with them. You know what I mean? And then, but when we need to score touchdowns, right? And then defensively, Coach K-Mac's doing a great job. This is his 3rd season now, and that's where kind of the starting group, the starting group on offense is half and half, kind of veteran and young guys. On defense, we're very veteran, and we've got a ton of depth with young talent, young guys with talent, but also size. We just got bigger. We got DBs that are 6'3" and 6'4", and they're in second year, and that's going to help on special teams, which I think our special teams is going to improve as well. So, Mike Omosini on the D line. We've got Marcus Ola and Dominique Walker, who was at the East West Bowl, 6'7", and then Arden Martinez did a good job at the East West Bowl. We got Isaac Porter, who was in the East West Bowl playing free safety. We have all we have a really solid defense. Mason Henry returns, who he went to the combine, went undrafted, but Isaiah Blackson. We all the four guys. 4 or 5 guys. I think 4 guys that went to combines now went undrafted. They're all back, right. So it's, there's a lot of excitement here as everything, every team says you got to stay healthy. But, the nice thing is we've really created some depth, and we're continuing to develop those players. And, so we're a year older from being the youngest team, and, but we're a year hungrier. And I think there's a belief in that locker room, a quiet confidence. But you know what? We talked about it today. We can't, we got to be brutally honest with each other. We got to hold each other accountable. And we've always been, it's any team right now. It's like, there's a lot of talking, right? Like everyone, if you don't believe right now, it doesn't matter what school you're at, school X, school Y. If you don't believe right now at the start of training camp, you got a chance. Well, then why the F are you doing it? Right. So I talk about walking it, and we're talking about, let's put our name on it. The name on the front of the jersey is Warriors. The name on the back of the jersey is your family name. Putting your name on it. You're part of the Warrior football family, and you got to represent yourself. You got to put your name on it each and every day, and that starts with effort and attitude. And if as a collective, 12 guys are on the field. If you do your 1/12 and you do your job and you have trust and faith that the guy to the right and the guy to the left of you is going to do the same, and you're not worried, you're just focused on, playing fast, playing violent, and, good things happen. Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, we're really excited. Obviously, I'm an excitable guy as it is, but, Yeah, I believe we're a playoff team. I'm not a guy that's in here to predict records or anything of that sort, but I think that, we stay healthy, and sometimes staying healthy is being smart in practice, but also, it's lucky too.
Yep.
As a football guy, sometimes you got to be lucky to be good. And that adage in football, I think really revolves around staying healthy, right? So
Yeah.
stay healthy and getting early, getting a couple early wins would be really important for us. There's a little stretch in our season there that, we're playing, the four semifinal teams, 4 games in a row, right? Well, you know what? We got to play everybody anyways, and I know as the media, you want to shape it around that. And yeah, is it a gauntlet? I guess so. But we got to get through the gauntlet to get to the other side anyways. And so it's about the process and one day at a time, winning each day and then making sure that the it all culminates and we stack those days on top of each other and we really put something together when the lights are on and we're playing against an opponent. And so getting a few wins early would be really important for us, to build some of that confidence and kind of validate the belief that we have in our locker room, right? I think that's a real important piece, to it. So getting off to a fast start is the mantra.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I mean, I've always known your enthusiasm for the team, but I just feel like, hearing you talk through that, there's a lot of reasons to be positive and to feel positive, and it's not, BS and getting in front of it and selling people on stuff. I know that you actually care, obviously, about your players. You always have. Even since I knew you and you were trying to get me to go to some school, far away when I was just some crummy quarterback out of Kingston. So I understand why you feel so passionately about this, but certainly with the layout of your schedule and understanding the challenges that come every year, you know as well as anybody how tough it will be, and I'm excited to see you take on those challenges and have some fun with it. So, I guess my last thing on this will just be when you mentioned Michael Omosini, who you said one of the best linebackers in the OUA. I laughed when I looked at his year by year, like the picture and the heights and the weights and all that good stuff, because it's one of my favorite things come draft time where you just see like a child in first year and you see a grown ass man by the time that they
Oh,
reach their draft year. And Omosini is one of those guys, man. Where
oh,
I, when I see the pictures and I see the heights and the weights, I'm like, yep, he's one of those guys. He's going to be around.
yeah, he's you know, obviously, we haven't had the guy drafted in the last couple of years, and I always talk to the guys about team success. Team success, um, will gives into those individual accolades and individual opportunities. You can see it, whether it's OUA All Star, All Canadian, or getting your name called on the CFL draft. Mike's a special kid, super smart, just a really outstanding young man, hardworking. Um, and man, he played 1 year of high school football at Burlington Assumption, basketball player, and you can see it. Like, how many people can say they picked off Taylor Algersma twice in a quarter on the big end, a 15-yard big end, and and Mike just jumps out of nowhere. Like the kid is a freak of nature. He's 6'3", 245. He's an American middle linebacker playing, runs off 4.7 flat, like he's going to get picked high in the
It's
CFL.
great.
And he's coming. He played through last year with a torn labrum in his shoulder. Played the whole season. We were
Right.
fortunate enough to get him in early, in November to get his labrum repaired. But today he benched today, and I was like, "You sure you're good?" He got 19 reps at 225, and
Ooh,
yeah, and he had torn labrum surgery at the end of November last year, right? So that's the kind of work ethic. If CFL teams are calling me about him, I'm going to be like, yeah. So he had shoulder repair surgery on November 30th, and on August 14th he got 19 reps. So you know what kind of work he does.
that's wild. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the good stuff, man. That's where the heart and soul of a team is built, and I know your team's got plenty of it this year.